Hello everybody, I'm back with another Gasmask Reader review. This time around I'm talking about a fairly old book that I happen to have on my Kindle. Red Aces by Edgar Wallace, the king of the thrillers. Of course, this isn't a thriller. This is actually a detective story from 1929. Actually, it's not a detective story. It's a collection of three longish detective stories. And I don't know I'm not quite sure if they're longish short stories or shortish novellas. It's not like I did a word count on them. They're part of his detective J.G. Reader series, which, in fact, this is the fourth volume in this series. I've previously read the other three, and I have them in an omnibus edition around here somewhere. I don't know where, and I'm not reading them out to wave it at you, so you can find it on Amazon if you want to see it. Yeah, the point of this series is that J.G. Reader is basically a very ordinary, boring-looking, middle-aged man, but he has an extraordinarily sharp mind, and he always says that he has a criminal mind because he seems to be really good at understanding the way criminals think, which is how he manages to solve crimes, by thinking like a criminal. Like I said, this contains three different stories. The first one is the title story called Red Aces, which is about a revenge murder, basically. A man is murdered, and there are two red aces, Ace of Hearts and Ace of Diamonds, pinned to his door after the murder. And there's all kinds of other stuff involving a gambling club and checkered past and all that kind of stuff. And the second one is called Kennedy the Con Man, which is also a murder involving a con man known as Kennedy, as you can probably guess by the title. And it tends to revolve around a murder of a Russian who's talking about a brooch he owns and a secret trying to cover up a illicit crime ring that had happened years ago, and people disappearing and people getting murdered and all that stuff. And once again, Reader solves it by using his mind, just like a detective does. Then the third one is called The Case of Joe Adamar. I think. I don't know how you pronounce it. Basically, this is Reader facing off against a criminal who fancies himself a criminal mastermind, and he's certainly by far the smartest criminal that Reader faced in any of the books I've read. He planned a very good murder that pretty much anybody but Reader probably would have, not figured it out. And even against Reader, he nearly managed to get him on more than one occasion, which is pretty good. He's smart enough to avoid trouble, and actually fairly good in a fight, too. And now I'll do my usual short reading, this time from the first story, the one that the book is titled after, Red Aces. When a young man is very much in love with the most attractive girl, he is apt to endow her with qualities and virtues which no human being has ever possessed. Yet at rare and painful intervals there enter into his soul certain wild suspicions, and in these moments he is inclined to consider the possibility that she may be guilty of the basest treachery and double-dealing. Everybody knew that Kenneth McKay was desperately in love. They knew it at the bank where he spent his days counting other people's money, and a considerable amount of his lunch hour writing impassioned and ill-spelt letters to Margot Lynn, his taciturn father, brooding over his vanished fortune in his gaunt riverside house at Marlow, may have employed the few moments he gave to the consideration of other people's troubles in consideration of his son's new interests. Probably he did not, for George Mackay was entirely self-centered and had little thought but for the folly which had dissipated the money he had accumulated with such care, and the development of fantastical schemes for its recovery. I tend to think that does a fairly decent job of setting up who the secondary characters are, and giving some background on the story, and generally providing a good setting and, I guess, atmosphere for the story. Doesn't actually do much to reply. I mean, yeah, the young man and his love interest and the young man's father all play a part in the story. And really, when it gets right down to it, Reader is kind of supposed to be boring, ordinary looking sort of person, so he isn't always the focus until things start happening. And it doesn't take too long for things to start happening in this story, or any of the stories really. Overall, they're fairly good stories. They're kind of old-fashioned, but seeing as how they're almost 90 years old at this point, that's not really surprising. Of course, as with a lot of stuff from that period, the social mores and such are vastly different from what a 21st century American experience is. Especially since it's set in the UK, not specifically in London, I think. Which makes it a little bit harder to relate, but it's still a very good story. And I really like the series, and I'm almost certainly going to pick up the fifth and I think final volume of the series. And the character, the Reader, is boring, but somehow manages to be interesting too. I don't know how Wallace did it. But this series is definitely worth checking out, and I'll give it a rating of a good 4 gas masks. And that's all I have to say about this particular book. I'll be back soon, hopefully tomorrow. If not tomorrow, almost certainly the day after, with another review. This time of a book that is actually fairly recently released. Just came out in an ebook and mass market release last week, though it did have a limited edition release, I think, last year. But it's a really good horror novel that I'm really enjoying reading, and I can't really wait to do the review. But until then, I'll keep reading it, and you try reading something yourselves. Okay, bye.
If you like this video, please click subscribe or watch some of my older videos. If you think the book I reviewed sounds interesting, buy a copy. There are always links to the Amazon store in the description for this book and any other books I mentioned. If you have any suggestions on other books I could read, or any other comments, queries, insults, or anything else you want to say, please feel free to mention it in the comments section.